Hello, and welcome to the webinar, Artificial Intelligence Real Impact, AI Tools for HR. My name is Eric Wallace with Argyle, and it's great to have everyone joining us today. I have a few administrative details to share with you, then we'll turn things over to our esteemed speakers. First, we would like to thank the SHRM Executive Network for their partnership with today's event. They've been wonderful partners to Argyle, and they're committed to providing you with valuable content and a great overall experience. Thank you again to the SHRM Executive Network. We appreciate you joining us today. We also welcome you to stay socially connected during today's event. For those of you who are active on social media, please use the hashtag ArgyleDigital and follow us at Argyle Exec Forum. Also be sure to follow Argyle on LinkedIn for special announcements. I also wanted to take a moment to touch on our content neutrality policy, which we've curated based on the feedback we've received over the years from our members. We've worked closely with our speaking faculty to ensure that you receive a set of balanced and neutral viewpoints during the session today, and we appreciate our member support of this policy. Finally, and most importantly, we want to hear from you, so please submit all questions that come up during today's event into the chat section of the interface. Following the discussion, we've set aside time for our speakers to weigh in on your questions. Now, without further delay, we'll introduce our speakers and begin our discussion. Today, we're joined by Jane Curran, who is Global Head Talent Acquisition at Jones Lang LaSalle, and Jim Link, Chief Human Resources Officer at SHRM Executive Network. Welcome, Jane and Jim. Jim, over to you.
Thank you, Eric, and hello, everyone. My name is Jim Link. I'm the Chief Human Resources Officer at SHRM, and I'm super excited to be here with you today to talk about this topic. You know, we were just briefing each other just before the call started, and we learned that the topic of artificial intelligence in the workplace is a subject of attention now for so much of our audience members and for so many of you who are joining us today. Matter of fact, in the last 2 weeks, I've been on no less than 5 panels or webinar type presentations talking about this topic alone. So clearly it's something that we all need to address and need to understand. And I'm joined today by Jane Curran, who's with us from JLL to really tell us about how that's been implemented in their particular workplaces. So super excited to be here today. When we think about artificial intelligence, we're talking about something that for some organizations has already become part of what they're doing on a day-to-day basis. We also know that there are many organizations out there, and probably still the majority, where this idea of moving artificial intelligence, and particularly generative artificial intelligence, into the normal day-to-day work activities is something that's probably in the planning stage or in the pilot stage and not yet been introduced or implemented into their respective organizations. Today, we hope to inform you about a variety of things that we've seen, and particularly Jane's seen, as they have adopted artificial intelligence and generative AI into their work practices and workflows. And today, we hope to give you both a theoretical idea, but also a very practical-based idea of what artificial intelligence is going to mean for us, both in the short and the long term. And then Jane can certainly tell us about some of the applications that she's seeing at JLL right now, and particularly in the area of talent acquisition. So without further ado, Jane, are you ready to dig right in?
Let's do it.
All right, that's fantastic. So Jane, can you just give us an overview of kind of where JLL is at the moment and in the world of artificial intelligence, and particularly artificial intelligence as it relates to talent acquisition?
Sure. So JLL is a commercial real estate organization, and we provide real estate services to owners and occupiers. So being a professional service firm, one of the reasons I love working here and have stayed here is that we always want to be first, right? We want to be innovators, because if we're selling a service, you know, we have to be the best at it. So we have taken GPT to the next level and created our own JLL GPT for our employees to use, and obviously benefit what we do as corporate functions, but also benefit the service we provide our clients. Specifically in TA, I think we probably started this journey probably in 2018, when we made the decision, which is a very important but expensive decision, to implement one human capital system globally. So we went with Workday in 2018, which was, 100,000 employees, 80 plus countries. That's a big deal, because that was the start of saying, well, now we're going to make technology decisions as one. We can't have all these point solutions in all these different countries. We'll never reach any scalability. So with that, once we got that in place, I was like, well, let's do more, right? Like, this is great. This is the foundation. You kind of have to have this. But then we started exploring more point solutions to add to our human capital system. So,
And Jane, when you think about the business need that was actually driving this reaction that you all had to go to your one system of record back in 2018, what were those pain points? What actually pushed you all to that decision to invest? Because that's a huge capital investment in your organization.
huge. I think at some point you have to understand if you're going to grow, and we have been growing, you have to have that foundation. I mean, we're ultimately a people business, right? We're generating service and value through humans. And if we can't properly track, measure, manage our human capital, then we're not going to grow and scale the way we want to. So I really think it was who we are as an organization. And we were growing up, right? At some point, you have to make that big business investment to say, okay, we got to this point very federated, right? But to get to the next level, we have to have what we call one JLL.
Yeah, that reminds me very much of this idea that we propagate at SHRM, that there are really three things that are going to enable any organization to grow successfully in the future. And that's some combination of talent, tech, and leadership.
Mm-hmm.
And you all clearly decided to invest on that tech side. And I'm sure that you were also paying lots of attention to the talent side, which is obviously your world in talent acquisition, but also to that leadership side as well. So when you think about artificial intelligence, particularly in the world of talent acquisition, can you let our audience know what you guys are doing and how successful you feel like you've been on that journey?
I would say we have a mantra of progress over perfection. So none of this has been perfect, but each time we do something we learn, we like to fail fast and keep going. So I would say then maybe 2019, we bought our first piece of AI that was more along the assessment vein, meaning like, hey, if we can assess people faster, higher quality of candidate, they'll stay longer and better matches. And, I learned a lot from that because you as HR professionals, TA professionals, and all this AI coming at you, you can fall in love with a sales pitch real easily. And I think that was kind of my first aha of like, okay, this can work, but can it scale? It worked, but it didn't scale. So from that point, it was like, okay, well, when that proved itself to be good, but not great, I said, all right, well, now I'm going to take that investment and put it towards something else. But I didn't look at that as a failure. I was like, okay, we have to keep experimenting. And then the other thing that took us away from maybe assessment is that was right when the economy was going crazy after COVID and nobody wanted to do an assessment. You were losing candidates left and right. They're like, I'm not doing a 20-minute assessment. So there were many things that led us to say, okay, let's go more to like matching technology. What can we do to speed up? We have a lot of applicants. I'm not going to get more recruiters. How can I speed up that whole resume review process? So that's when we looked into technology that was more around matching skills to job descriptions. And that has done us really well, not only for external applicants, but we're also using it for something called Open to Opportunities. Ooh. So there's a lot of ITMs out there where you can get into like full scale, like how do you want to grow your career in our organization? And while we certainly believe in that, we're not like from a journey, we're not there yet. But I said, hey, we've got lots of open positions and I've got 100,000 employees. I can't grow by just keep hiring externally. So we used Workday on our matching technology to turn it on internally because it's a lot easier for people to leave and find a job outside. We said, no, stay. Make yourself known that you want to stay here, talk to your manager, lots of change management, but they fill out a skills profile in Workday and they turn on Open to Opportunities and then they're fed weekly new opportunities. They can decide to interview, not interview. So all of those things are kind of culminating, I say, as some early success stories in the technology we've purchased. And then from a GPT standpoint, my TA team is like in deep with figuring out all the use cases. Some you and I have talked about around job descriptions, as well as job advertisements, quick notes, quick catchy notes to social tiles, social media, summary of interview notes, summary of intake notes. So we're really lucky to have GPT at our disposal and fingertips to accelerate kind of the source screen schedule component of recruitment. We're trying to speed that all up.
You know, Jane, I love the idea that artificial intelligence is actually pushing opportunities to employees. I mean, that's fantastic, and clearly builds the employee experience in your organization. If you are looking for a total way of thinking about the employee ecosystem, having an employee experience opportunity that's strong is absolutely essential for a business outcome, because we all know that top quartile employee experience delivers top quartile business performance as well. So that I love how you all are utilizing that to push the opportunities to employees in ways that they might not have seen before.
Right.
But you know, Jane, this is interesting to me too, because I want to dial back just a little bit and think about some of the change management that you probably had to put in place with your recruiting team in order to pull that off. We all know recruiters and how they operate. They tend to, particularly those who are doing recruiting of high volume type positions. I mean, they've got a model. Sometimes they're like hamsters on a hamster wheel, and they are moving to make things happen. Can you talk a little bit about the change management that had to be dropped into the way that you led and the way that the team had to think going forward during this transition?
Yeah, I'm so glad you asked this question, because we soon realized, wow, the tech is there. Like, we can turn this on tomorrow, but it's not going to work unless we spend 6 months designing and coaching the change. Because not only did you have to change and coach the recruiters to get excited about this, clearly we could get the employees excited about it, but the recruiters and the hiring managers were like, not so sure. I'm not so sure about this. And I don't think we're any different than any organization. Like, internal mobility is difficult. So we started with our most senior level and said, we've got attrition costs the firm millions of dollars, millions. So why don't we try to be progressive and open up opportunities to our employees? But we needed their support behind it, because hiring managers, that's fine, way senior level, but hiring managers are going to get frustrated. How dare you? This is my talent. You can't take them. Not now, not ever. So we had to really, really, really take the time to say, look, folks are going to leave if we don't give them these opportunities. We can't grow and meet our expectations if we don't move our amazing talent around. So we worked with our L&D department and hosted many, many, many sessions with recruiters, hiring managers, what we call people experience partners, to get them really comfortable in like scenario-based setting. Like, what happens when the hiring manager gets upset? Hey, recruiter, you should feel empowered and excited to go talk to that internal candidate and not fear repercussions for reaching out. So there was a ton of time and energy spent in like the nuts and bolts of change management around the conversation, like scripts. Hey, employee, you're ready for open opportunities. Here's a script. Go talk to your manager. You have to initiate that. And then, hey, manager, when your employee comes to you, be warm, be welcoming. So, I mean, I guess we tried to make it Sesame Street simple, right? We tried to say there's many inputs to make internal mobility work. We want to equip everyone to have a healthy conversation, knowing that not everyone's going to be thrilled with this, but this is the future. So let's go, let's move, let's take advantage of the technology we have to make these connections happen. And then managers, what we'd like to do in the future is recognize who are the top exporters of talent, who are the ones that don't hoard, that do develop. And it's a struggle for us. We initially, as an organization, I think consumer packaged goods, pharma, they do better like growing from within. We historically have like, oh, let's just go to the market and get somebody. So that whole concept of like promoting from within is a new muscle that we're going to get good at it. But we were just excited to have the technology partner with the change management required to start this movement.
Jane, when you were thinking about the current talent acquisition professionals in your organization, and then you think about teaching technological change or technological difference, or even upskilling, new skilling, or reskilling those talent acquisition professionals to learn a new tool. how much lift did you find that was required there? Was it hard to do, or did you all have it very programmed and focused and structured in such a way that working with your L&D professionals, it was, here's what you got to learn, here's how much time you have to learn it, and then here's what the outcome of that learning will be? How did you all go about doing that?
I think, right, we certainly have measurements and data, and all of these technologies are like integrated with each other. So like if you're a recruiter and you go to your rec, you can see like who's internal, who's a past applicant, who's a new applicant. So like you can target your time and attention. And we always say the fastest to convert are obviously internals, plus their background check, they have their computers, they understand our systems. Like we're kind of like run towards the internal candidate. We had 0 escalations at launch. So the first 90 days we had, I think because we had done such a great job with the change management part that we really haven't had that many issues. But it's a constant journey. That's the other thing is like you start this, but it can quickly fade if you don't constantly beat the drum and keep it top of mind with the recruiters, with the hiring managers, and with new employees. So we're working really hard to not kind of do what we've done in the past, which is like launch something, we get super excited, then we're on to the next thing and kind of forgot, why did we do that?
Yeah, very, very important. And we all know that change management best occurs in any organization whenever there's a known purpose and a known outcome, and then those expectations are measured in some way. And
Yeah.
Thinking about that measurement, what's been the reaction? What's been the numerics, the rationale, as you think about this change, what have you seen that's different in the organization, either in a hiring manager satisfaction or in employee satisfaction? What have you seen?
Well, we launched in July, so we're still a little early, but I would say the reason we did all of this too was obviously there was many gains, right? Employee experience, drive down turnover, but also employee surveys. So we survey employees every year, and last survey there was a bunch of like, I don't know what my next move is, I don't know how to find a new job at JLL. So that was like last year. We just did our next survey this October, but from July to October, I can't say we've moved mountains yet, but the measurement is, I think we had 1,600 people sign up within the first 90 days. We've obviously had several placements from it, and I hope the sentiment changes. Like, ask me again next October when we do our employee survey. Has the sentiment changed that like I do know how to navigate JLL, I do know how to find my next opportunity, and we're constantly looking for stories. Like employment brand's really important. I don't care if we're in a recession, not in a recession. It's noisy out there if you're looking for a job because there's lots of different opportunities. So we want to keep our employment brand strong. And when we do have a success with open to opportunities, feature it, write a quick story, do a social tile, make sure that people see that like they internally too, like, oh, it worked for my friend Chris over there. I should try this, give this a try. So I think the measurements will come, but it was initially successful launch. And to me, it's just, you can't stop talking about it to then continue to prove out the metrics. I think maybe the aha moment for us too was, and for hiring managers as well, just because you launch this doesn't mean every single person is going to be like, I want to raise my hand. If we have 100,000 employees and 1,600 were immediate to raise their hand, that seems healthy to me. That seems about right. Because that's assuming everybody read the email, which they didn't, right? So I think it was just like getting over that initial fear that even though you do this, that doesn't mean everybody's going to start to scatter to new opportunities. There's different points in people's lives where they're like, I'm ready. Sounds interesting. I might look into that in 6 months. So I think we'll keep you posted on the measurements, but initially the movement of talent is working. And the other thing is too, I guess, it just increased internal applicants.
Oh, okay.
Period. Whether they went through like the perfect channel we had scripted for them or not, it was increased. We're at like 20%. We want to get to like 25, 30% of placements are internal. So
Well, that within itself is an employee engagement indicator right there, right? That you have that number of people who are now applying for positions in the organization and have a greater awareness of the opportunity to move within JLL. That's absolutely fantastic. Just standing alone, right? That's
Right.
a very interesting statistic. You know, Jane, we were talking earlier in our preparation for this call about something you all did recently, a hackathon. Can you tell the audience about that hackathon and what you saw as a result of that?
Sure. So this is, I think, our fourth hackathon as an organization, but this October's hackathon was focused on GPT. So I don't have all the stats in front of me, but I mean, there were hundreds of applicants, 3 categories, and we entered as a HRTA department because we want to keep moving. In order to keep moving, we need to find, interest and investment. So it was really cool to be part of this hackathon because it was like, don't worry about why it won't work or how much it's going to cost. Just go design what you need.
Oh,
So it was really cool how we have a very large skilled trades population at JLL. We call, what we do here is like from the boiler room to the boardroom. We offer lots of different commercial real estate services to different asset types, and we always need people on site. Most people at JLL get up and go to work at a client site, then they come into a JLL office. So we call those the deskless workers.
Ooh.
So if you're a deskless worker, you don't have time to if anyone uses Workday, love Workday, but it's a hard system to navigate. So we're trying to figure out how can it be a mobile enabled hiring experience to say, oh my gosh, Carl quit this morning. I need to get this filled, but I'm just going to go to my tablet or my phone and quickly, we called it Hire Buddy, and use Hire Buddy to facilitate letting my recruiter know, posting the job, getting the job description written, using, AI as the job description template. We also had HiredScore back in there for ranking of candidates, thumbs up, thumbs down, a feedback tool. So we put all of these things together to say this would be nirvana if we could have a deskless worker have a Hire Buddy kind of in their pocket to accelerate the recruitment process. And at JLL, that's also how we generate revenue, is by having right people, right place, right time, servicing the client. So we were lucky enough to win Wow the Customer with coming together with that idea. And now I'm not going to let it go. We have another real pitch to the business to be so you liked it. Now we need to figure out how to build and fund it. So we're excited.
Oh, I love that. And what a great idea, a great opportunity to get people involved, right, in a hackathon type of idea, because we all know how much creativity and how much capability that drives in an organization, not to mention engagement. Jane, I also found interesting your use of the term deskless workers. That's I haven't heard that one yet, so thank you for making me smarter about that. We call those folks, I think they're the same classification of folks, we call those people proximity workers, because they have to be on, in, around, or near something else in order to complete the tasks that they do on a day-to-day basis. In your case, that could be anywhere from the boiler room to the boardroom, as you described. I wanted to share just a couple of stats about ChatGPT and what's happening with ChatGPT right now. So we all know that this falls into a category of artificial intelligence and most likely generative artificial intelligence, depending upon whose definition you believe is appropriate these days. But there was a recent Pew Research Center survey that came out about this very topic of ChatGPT. And what they said that in their polling among all of those people who have heard of ChatGPT specifically, only 24% of those people who've ever even heard of it have even attempted to use it. And so to me, that just is indicative right there of the upside opportunity that exists here with this particular technology.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that you all are using it at JLL, I think, is very indicative of being ahead of the curve, certainly more so than being at or behind that curve. But what's even more interesting is when you start to dig into the details a little bit about how people are actually utilizing ChatGPT. And these statistics, I think, are important. I'll share them here. I'm looking at my sheet here to make sure I get the numbers right. Originally, the highest percentage of people that were utilizing ChatGPT were utilizing it for their own personal entertainment purposes. And that level from March till July of this year stayed pretty flat at about 20%. But what's more interesting is how people are choosing to use it now. When you look at that. And in that same time period from March to July, according to Pew, people went from 12 to 16% of using it for work purposes, but changed the most from 14 to 19% using it to learn something new. I think this whole space of not just talent acquisition like you all are utilizing it, but thinking about this in the learning and development space is absolutely huge. Now, I know your space is clearly in the talent acquisition realm. Are you aware if JLL is utilizing learning and development or utilizing artificial intelligence in the learning and development space at all?
Yes, I think we're trying to figure out the use cases for other parts of HR. I was talking to our benefits department and rewards because, it's the end of the year. We run on a 12-month calendar. So we're getting ready to start to build our bonus pools and all that, organization that goes behind rewarding people. And they were saying next year we want to use GPT and AI to, instead of manually creating all of these buckets of, reward to give, use GPT to create, all of the complicated algorithms that we have to run to get this going. The other thing we're thinking about is predicting, I don't know, I'm sure we're not the only one, but it's complicated to get invoices paid, contingent workers, that to force hiring managers to learn all their cost centers is never going to happen. And I keep telling people, stop blaming the hiring manager. We've complicated our financial system. So we need to use predictive analytics to say, if I live in Chicago and I'm in HR, my cost center should probably be Y, and just go, and 85, it'll get smarter over time, maybe 85%, get it up to 100 and have a human checking it for a bit, but then let the AI work on its own. So, I think that different business lines or different parts of HR are trying to figure out what is my area, what can I do? I would say marketing and HR, if I just look at who we are, I mean, the business is all in, right? They're finding many, many different ways to pull data. I think I've seen coworkers of mine start to use it instead of Google. If they need to research, who offers flexible time off benefits at other companies, or is this common in Canada? It's faster. It gives you better data, better information. So I would say from a learning perspective, your Pew research, you just said, I've seen that, right? So in the summer, maybe I was thinking about planning my vacation using GPT. Now I'm figuring out oh my God, I need to get really smart on this topic by noon. What can GPT tell me? So I have seen that change.
I know, it's absolutely amazing. We're getting a lot of commentary in the chat about utilizing AI for L&D. And a couple of folks have said that they're utilizing it for everything from onboarding to performance management to goal setting, you name it. Not to add to that, in addition to things like understanding competency, skill, and capability of your current workforce, as well as building predictions for what those skills, competencies, and capabilities are going to be for the future. Now, you working in talent acquisition, obviously, if you understand what those skills, competencies, and capabilities are going to be for a year to 2 years out, that's imperative to understand for the way you attract and pull people into your organization today. One of the things that we've seen in the area of performance management, and the genesis of this particular study leaves me, but I do remember reading a couple of studies that showed that when artificial intelligence was applied, normally in the area of skill development or competency development for an individual, and you understood the historical performance of that person, when AI tools, technology, and capability were given to those individuals, the people who were uplifted the most as a result of having those tools available to them were the low performers in an organization. So I find that fascinating because that gives you an opportunity to enhance the overall performance of your organization by going to those people or identifying and then helping those people who need it the most to raise their performance from a low level to even to a moderate level. You're right. I mean, yeah, that's progress over perfection, right, Jane? To use your entire journey. We have another comment in here that's saying that they used it to design learning journeys, and were able to cut time of L&D design by more than 40%. That's absolutely huge. So we're seeing it now in L&D. We're seeing it in artificial intelligence, which is where in talent acquisition, Jane, which is where you've spent most of the time. We're also seeing it for identifying equity in organizations, or maybe inequity in organizations. And that's going beyond the traditional definitions of what equity means. It's moving toward looking at the broader scope of everything that happens in an employee ecosystem or in the employee experience, and then ensuring that you can address some of those inequities that might occur, whether that's pay, skill development, promotion capability, competency development, you name it, right? It's absolutely fascinating to see all that happen. You know, Jane, when we're thinking now about JLL, back to JLL for just a moment, where do you think this is all headed at your organization? What's next? What's on the radar screen for JLL as you think about artificial intelligence?
I am trying to push towards automation of work, highly repeatable work, versus necessarily like finding solutions to duplicate the work, say in a nearshore or offshore location. Does that make sense? So there's a huge part of what we do to ensure that our employees have moments that matter and have a good experience at JLL. That means being able to quickly answer their questions around pay, benefits, and leaves. And right now, it's super clunky. So like we have an intranet where you can go and type in, I'd like to know more about the maternity leave policy, but it's not easy, it's not quick, it's not simple. So we're trying to figure out through providers we have and the GPT we have to be like, this should be, the technology is getting there really quickly, that when an employee has that moments that matter, like I think my pay might be wrong, or I got a dog, what are your pet insurance benefits, like stuff like that should not be hard to navigate. It's really, really, really hard. And I'm trying to figure out how to figure out, instead of like opening tickets and calling a call center, like the information's available. We just can't serve it to you fast enough. So right. I'm really trying to figure out how do you make kind of that like back office part of HR that's critical to the employee's engagement and experience, easy, fast, and with the right answer the first time. Not like, well, I called, then you sent me to this 800 number to that. So we're really trying to figure out like that digital front door. What is JLL's one-stop shop when I have questions about being an employee, whether it's my 401k, like all of those things, they are frustrating for the employee. And then as an HR professional, you want to be contemporary. I want to be like, I know I don't have money like Amazon to have like an Amazon-like experience, but that's my dream. That's my dream, is that an employee can come in and no matter what their question, concern is about that day, that they're like, oh my God, that was so simple. 2 years ago, I was transferred 6 times and still never got the answer I needed from your department. So I'm really trying to raise the brand of HR and figure out how to bring these contemporary solutions to the employee experience. It's not easy and it's not quick, but if we can stay focused on it, the tech's there. Yeah,
I love that. And from benefiting from a couple of the webinars and panel programs in which I've been involved in the last couple of weeks, one of the things that's very interesting that you mentioned around those moments that matter, it's not only that the best AI tools in the future are going to be easy and fast, but they're also going to be incredibly customized to that particular moment that matters for that employee. So that, if you're in an emergency situation, or if you're trying to find an answer right now, it's easy to do that as you described. But the best artificial intelligence, and particularly predictive artificial intelligence or generative, will be able to predict that need before you even know that it's a need, right? I can't wait for that to happen in our organizations. Just think of the calls that's going to reduce on the call lines or the queries you're going to get through your chat tool or however else it is that you communicate with employees on a daily basis. The idea that something's being pushed to you in a predictive way, anticipating needs for the future, is, I think, the sky, right, for what we're thinking about with artificial intelligence. And Jane, that brings me on the screen in front of us. The audience has kind of seen the way SHRM thinks about this right now, or maybe I should say thought about it 3 months ago, which is really artificial intelligence is an enhancement, right? So if you think about the human intelligence that exists in an organization and you add to it the capability that we get from artificial intelligence, you're absolutely going to see a return on that investment from your business. But then on the next slide, I think we're thinking about, just a few months later, we're thinking about this even differently. Guys, if you could, there we go. So we're thinking about this now in a different mathematical model, which is, instead of it just being additive, it's actually exponential. So if you think of human intelligence as being the base and use artificial intelligence as that exponent, then what you're going to get is some unknown return on your investment, which is going to supersede or be exponential as well. So the way we're trying to serve this up and think about this more broadly is to really, it's kind of like your hackathon model, right? Tell us what's possible, right? Tell us what's impossible. And then let's figure out how to go and solve against that. And Jane, this kind of brings me to this next area I want to explore just a little bit, because I think it's so critical for those of us who, all of us have bosses, right? All of us have leaders and boards of directors and even communities and others, shareholders, stakeholders, to which we're accountable and responsible. When you think about that leadership model in an organization that's trying to drive this type of change in its day-to-day operations, the use of artificial intelligence, what are you seeing? Is there a leadership model you think that works best, or what type of leader does an organization really need who's going to be grasping this and taking it to the next level?
Oh, a contemporary one that isn't afraid.
So risk tolerant for sure.
Yeah, fail fast. It's just very different than the way many of our leaders grew up. And this has come on fast. And you can see the ones that are like, oh, I better pay attention. And then and then you see the early adopters. But I would say, like, as an organization, obviously I'm gravitating to all the early adopters and the ones that like want to make change, sometimes popular, sometimes not. I just think it'd be interesting maybe over the next 24 months, because I think that some of this is moving so quickly. Like, you really have to stake your claim, like where do I stand on this topic? Because I just believe it won't, our company won't transform and find that scalability or all these exponential results that are available to us unless the leaders believe. And I think that it's about trust, and the technology needs to work. It needs to provide good results, trusted results. So I think if you can get maybe some people that are sitting on the sidelines to try it, test it, use it, see it work for themselves and their clients, they'll be bought in. But I think we just have to keep the flow and the pipeline of ideas coming, so that you just build that kind of momentum of like, okay, I believe, my team believes, obviously the company believes, and you change. But it's not, I can't say it's like sweeping easy and, oh, everyone's on board. No, you've got many people that are like, this is a fad, we'll see what happens. And then you've got people that are all in, and then you get some in the middle. Yeah,
well, I 100% agree. We're seeing the same things here at SHRM. The way to think about it is that those leaders, at least from our perspective, those leaders who are really doing a good job in this space have a couple of traits in spades. One, they're smart and curious, right? And that they have that in equal quantities. and that they're certainly flexible and agile to be able to. But then there's a cultural component to this as well, which leaders ultimately are responsible for in their organizations. And what we find is, and we talk about this often from the stage and even in our own writings at SHRM, is if you have cultures that really focus on four things, you're going to be good at this, right? At this adoption of everything that's new coming into the workplace today. If you have first of all, a culture of innovation, that mindset of innovation, a culture of continuous learning, a culture of collaboration. We haven't even talked about the collaborative capabilities that artificial intelligence gives us yet. And then finally, a culture of inclusion. And if you bring those four cultures together, I kind of think of it as a four-legged stool. And we all know what happens if you sit on a stool that has a leg that's too long or too short, right? You're off balance. So in essence, what we're saying is if you focus on building those four cultures in your organization as a leader, then everything that you need to do creates a culture of care. And in this culture of care, there's no better place for artificial intelligence and generative AI to get its root and then continue to grow. Because you're in a safe space, you have permission to fail, you have that, find ideas quickly, but fail just as quickly, right? That whole idea of permission and capability certainly gives you an upside there. So Jane, I love how you're thinking about this. I'm very curious as to what you think about the outcomes of this. And let's think about in time intervals, 6 months, a year, and then let's say 3 years. When you think about where, and I realize this is just your best guess, but when you think about where you are going to be at JLL in those time frames, where are you going to be? How should our audience think about their own progression compared to what you're going to tell us?
Okay. You said 6 months.
A year and 3. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to be telling the JLL story, if that's okay. Maybe I'll weave in my broader perspective, but I feel like it's an interesting time because I don't know about all of you, but the economy is not great. So all of this innovation I want to keep pushing for, right? It's getting crowded for funding because everyone's got some idea. So to me, in the next 6 months, I have to figure out how good is my idea, and your equation here, I really have to drive ROI. Anything I'm going to produce right now has to be, yes, if I'm speaking about TA, it has to be about ROI. How can I speed up the recruitment process? If it's taking me 45 days, can I get it to 30? That's savings, that's revenue. On the employee experience side, to me, I'm just looking for greater employee engagement and things of that nature. So those are my two in the next 6 months. How do I keep both of these ideas moving without losing what can we do now that maybe is within our control, within the resources we have? What point solution might I need to invest in? How am I going to get that? So those are, I guess, my short-term goals is just, there's a lot on the market. What do you need? Fall in love with your problem. Don't buy stuff you don't need because it sounded cool. That's the first, I think, trap in this space right now is just really find a partner or someone you trust to take you on this journey. A year from now, I think we're going to see change, I hope, in adoption. The way my team works, the way the company works, that it's no longer a cool, neat, thing, but I have real ways of working that include AI or GPT. Like you said, the L&D cutting down 40% of their time, those things need to be real. If I had a human interviewing or scheduling interviews, how can I get that to be no, now they're focused on employee experience and candidate experience. Somebody else is doing all that interview scheduling. So those are some things in a year's time where I feel the tech's there, the desire is there, and now the repetition will be there that they can do it. 3 years from now, I hope it is my vision for AI is less about I have to stop what I'm doing and learn something. It's when you get an update on your phone, it's not like Apple's whatever your provider is, hey, please take 10 minutes out to learn the new version of the iOS you just got. No, it's you just figured it out, or it was that simple. That's how I see AI being in 3 years? Right now, I still have to kind of stop, train, teach people how to make all of these AI systems work for their benefit, but they have to become automated in the next 3 years. So the things are just being done for you and you trust that they're being done right. And that's where I feel like that from now to 3 years is trust. Yep. It's still too new. It's still too fresh. There's still too many people skeptical, and rightly so, that in 3 years, I don't even think it's my digital assistant. It's my digital front door. All the manual stuff I had to do to get to where I need to now are gone.
Yeah. One of our audience members, I've been trying to keep up with the chat as you've been speaking, because it's blowing up with all kinds of good thoughts and good questions. One of the folks talked about the fact that basically artificial intelligence is human intelligence that's just simply augmented, right? It's a tool to augment our own capabilities and knowledge. And I saw another comment in there. They're flowing through so quickly, I can't keep up with them all. But I saw another comment about used to you were known for what you know. Then you were known for where to look it up, right? Basically to go get the information. And now you're probably known for how you share information, right? So it's not what you know, it's how you share what you know, which kind of adds into this culture, which we were talking about, this culture of collaboration, which is so important for artificial intelligence to get its genesis, or to get it to get its birthright within an organization. One of the questioners asked about any knowledge that we might have about the predictions of artificial intelligence causing a decrease in the labor workforce, or reducing the number of jobs that are available out there. I have seen some of that, and so Christine, I'll try to answer that, and then it's for Christine. I'll answer it, and Jane, I'll let you add on if you know anything that I don't know there. So, like many of you, I have read lots of studies that indicate that indeed artificial intelligence in and of itself will cause a decrease in some roles that are currently sitting out there today in the labor force. But I've also seen that as those decreases occur, it will generate many more positions than it eliminates. Now you can look, and those numbers are anywhere from millions to hundreds of thousands, in the American workforce alone, and certainly more than that significantly. But the preponderance of the studies that I show is that, or that I've read, says that yes, there will be changes in the type of work that are done, but will be a net new add to the number of jobs that are available out there in our workplace today. So again, you can find those numbers. Jane, have you seen anything different than kind of that overall broad summary that I described?
No, I that's what I've read too. Is that it's you've got doomsdayers out there, but then if you dig a little bit deeper and find the numbers, I feel like, I guess I'm a glass half full kind of person, and that we've clearly had major revolutions, industrial, technological, over time. And each time it changes, but it changes for the better. So I think that there will still be jobs for everyone, but they will look different. I think the struggle is today and will be in the future. Today you have enough jobs, but the skills don't match the jobs.
True.
So my view is I got plenty of jobs I can't fill because I don't have enough skilled workers out there to do those. So I think it's how you said before, with recruitment, I feel like the job will start to find the person versus me posting advertisements. I feel like, how do you work with, I don't know, the education system or something to be we will need more of this type of skill in the future, and drive people more towards skills than, I don't know what I want to do with my life. It's well, here are some really good options to recession-proof yourself for the future. But I don't know. I'm an eternal optimist. I do not think AI will take all of our jobs. I think just look at my recruiters right now, they're just trying to plug holes and stay above water. They will provide a much better experience, enjoy their jobs much more if they can get rid of all of this rigmarole administrative work. So
that's right, Jay. I'm right there with you and completely believe that. I'm gonna provide one example, and then we're going to go to audience Q&A. Let Eric pick back up here in just a second. But what was interesting, to give a real life example, a mathematical example of that story you just told about, over time, we've seen many, if you'll call them industrial revolutions, right, where things have changed dramatically in the workforce. And the number that always sticks in my mind to illustrate that is that a long time ago, really, when you think about the first mechanization, right, impact on our society, between 1870 and 1970, roughly 92% of jobs in the agriculture space disappeared, completely disappeared. Between 1870 and 1970, 92% of them. Mechanization obviously was the reason why, yet our total employment workforce continued to grow at exponential levels during that same time period. So Jane, I think you're absolutely right. It's an adjustment of the skills, competencies, and capabilities that are required to do a different kind of work than it is necessarily jobs becoming obsolescent or people becoming obsolescent in that space as well. So history is a good teacher for the future, and I think that getting us prepared for what lies ahead, and certainly, Jane, the examples that you've given today about your own experience within JLL has been incredibly helpful to help us do that. So, Eric, I'm going to turn it back over to you. I've tried to catch a few of the questions as they evolved, but I know I missed probably some really good ones as I was trying to pay attention and navigate here. So back to you.
Hey, thank you. Before we get started with Q&A with the audience, did you want to say a few words about the SHRM Executive Network?
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you, Argyle, and thank you, Eric and Jane, for being on today. The SHRM Executive Network is clearly designed to help those leaders who are in senior roles in organizations, both large and small, understand more about the roles, responsibilities, and future of the entire human capital management space. The SHRM Executive Network is a membership-only organization. It's our highest echelon of membership in SHRM. And we would certainly be excited if you had the opportunity to look us up, to think about us as you're trying to stay not just current with your knowledge, skills, and competencies as a professional, but how you can expand those skills, competencies, and capabilities for the future. This webinar has been a perfect example of that type of interaction that we see happening often in the SHRM Executive Network. So take a peek at that. If you're interested in that, you can certainly go to shrm.org and apply, or reach out to myself. I'm certainly willing to hear from you and would love to have you join us in the SHRM Executive Network for the future. All right, back to you, Eric.
Great, thank you. Let's take some questions from the audience. Just as a reminder, you can still enter questions. So the first audience question is, this is for Jane, can someone tell me what the matching technology that JLL has purchased?
Yeah, it was HiredScore. So it integrates with Workday. I'm assuming it integrates with whatever your ATS is, but it does very well with Workday. And
Great,
it re-engages your candidates too. So internal, external, you never lose touch with people. It's a great tool on many levels.
Great, thank you. The next question is also for you, and it's about the hackathon. It says, hi, Jane. Was it a classical hackathon or a promptathon? Employees using ChatGPT to do prompts to solve problems. We did a promptathon to develop AI use cases, and the experience was great.
That sounds awesome. I think we should do that just on my own team, a promptathon. It was, I don't know if it was a traditional hackathon, but everyone submitted like a real business case problem that they were trying to solve. And you had to get through several rounds of judges to make it to the finals to ultimately win. So it wasn't a promptathon. It was really but it had to be, 5 minutes, very well documented uses of AI, as well as demos and, brief commentary around it.
Hey, thank you. The next question is, does your AI require a work email? Part of our challenge is that on some platforms like the intranet, you need to have a work email to access. Curious if your system is limited or anyone can access it.
Our GPT, you have to be a JLL employee to use, if that was the question. It's only for JLL. It's a safe environment.
Yeah, this is interesting technologically because a lot of companies are enabling this capability behind their firewalls. and certainly makes sense. So in most organizations that I see anyway, that's absolutely the use case, is that it's accessible behind your firewall.
Yeah.
Thank you. Next question is, are there any thoughts regarding how AI will possibly remove positions from the workforce? Do people think that might happen? What is the dark side of AI?
I think we covered that.
We answered that one. Yeah, we got that answered. The dark side, though, Jane, this is one we might want to talk about just a little bit. There are things you have to think about. First of all, particularly if you're using generative AI, there are things that it's trust but verify. I think is probably the best way to think about that in a very general term. There's also this phenomena that exists in generative AI called hallucinations. The best way to think about it is the technology looks at data and then draws a conclusion from that. But that conclusion might be what we would call a false positive. So you can't trust it. Jane said that, remember, 5 years out, she's going to trust it completely, but she didn't say she trusted it completely today. And I think we're all in that space where that anything that's generative AI produced, you're clearly in a trust but verify mode, and you have to watch out for mirages and hallucinations and other things that the predominance of the data in a predictive way would indicate. So that's, to me, the dark side is when people just take it on face value and don't put that proper vetting in there. Jane, did you have another thought?
Thank you. Because I know that there's an evil side because people will find a way to make it work in a not above board kind of way. I am not worried, but I'm worried about the government regulations. Like, what are they going to do to kill the speed in which I think this technology can transform? Now, granted, I'm sure some obviously checks and balances are needed. I think it's moving so fast that the government regulators can't necessarily keep up with all of it. But I just hope it's all for the good, right? I believe in compliance and guardrails, but just for the benefit of everyone involved.
Thank you. The next question is, forgive my technical ignorance, but to build your own GPT, what role or person do you hire for this? An open AI engineer? Did you have a big team that you hired to do this?
Yes to all of the above. We do have a big team. We have a division called JLL Technologies. So yes, I'd be happy to take it offline to tell you about it, but it wasn't just this is like years in the making, right? It wasn't just something that came up last year, because AI we didn't get into the history of it all, but like this type of technology, while very basic, was around in the 50s, right? And it just kept getting smarter and smarter, and the neurons and all that keep getting bigger and faster. But right, we've had a technology team focused on this for years, and then obviously it all came together in the last 24 months.
Great, thank you. The next question, I think this is going to be our last question for the day. What's the biggest mistake you've seen companies make in integrating AI into their HR operations, and how did they get past it?
I'll start on that one. I think that the biggest mistake we see people making is that they view this not for the intent for which it was designed. So they don't begin with the end in mind whenever they're thinking about the use of any technology, and particularly artificial intelligence. So what we encourage employers to do is to have a plan, have those guardrails. You heard Jane mention those, and rules of engagement around how you think about artificial intelligence, and make for sure that it's led with the appropriate folks in the organization with those guardrails in place. For folks who are experimenting and looking for a rationalization from experimentation, that's usually not the right idea. The right idea in my mind, and what we encourage others to do, is to have a purposeful outcome for your technology innovation.
And I would just say, don't underestimate the change. It all sounds really cool, but if you don't have the change in support, sometimes it just doesn't work.
Definitely. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for questions today. Thank you, Jane and Jim, for that insightful session. This concludes today's webinar, and I want to thank everyone in the audience for joining us today for this excellent virtual event. And thank you again to our partner, the SHRM Executive Network. And enjoy the rest of your day.